Have you ever sat in silence, staring at your phone, wondering why he suddenly pulled away, just when you started to feel something real? That sickening ache in your stomach when the texts slow down, when the energy shifts, when you replay every conversation, trying to figure out where you lost him. You thought you were connecting, you laughed at his jokes, you shared pieces of your heart. And now, you're invisible. There's a particular kind of heartbreak that doesn't come from a breakup. It comes from the quiet disappearance, the kind that leaves you questioning your worth. You ask yourself, was I too much? Was I not enough? And somewhere deep inside, the voice you try to silence whispers, why does this always happen to me? But here's the truth. This pain, it's not just yours. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, an invisible emotional blueprint all women inherit. A shared memory, a shared wound. It's the ache of every woman who ever gave too much too soon. Of every woman who was taught to earn love by shrinking, pleasing, giving, waiting. It's the wound of the feminine that longs to be claimed, but fears abandonment if she dares to stand in her full power. And maybe, just maybe, you're not actually broken. Maybe you're awakening. Because inside that heartbreak is a wild, magnetic version of you waiting to rise. The woman he won't just want, but need. Not because you chased him, not because you begged for crumbs, but because you remembered your power. And in this video, you're going to remember. You're going to learn exactly how to shift the dynamic, not with manipulation, but with quiet, confident energy. You're going to unlock 3 secret, sacred truths about how to ignite his desire and hold it. Not by becoming someone else, but by becoming more you. You're not here to chase love. You're here to become the reason love chases you. There's a quiet kind of loneliness that doesn't always show on the outside. It wears lipstick, smiles at dinner tables, texts him back in soft, thoughtful words, but inside, she's unraveling. Not because she's weak, but because she's tired of pretending she doesn't care more than he does. Most women won't talk about it, but many have lived this silent ache. You give and give, not just attention or time, but something deeper. You give your presence, your softness, your desire to be chosen, to be seen, to be wanted beyond the surface. And when he pulls away or offers inconsistency, you begin to turn inward, blaming yourself. You wonder if maybe you were too available, too open, too much, or not enough. That quiet spiral begins, the one where you try to fix it without him ever saying something is broken. You respond faster, you mirror his needs, you lower your standards just a little, not out of desperation, but because you care. You want it to work. You believe if you just love better, he'll stay. But here's where the deeper truth begins. Carl Jung taught us that we don't just relate from the conscious mind, we relate from the shadows, the unspoken patterns we carry from childhood, from past relationships, from the feminine wound passed down through generations. Many women have been taught that love is something to earn, that attention equals safety, that being chosen means being worthy. So without realizing it, you may project your longing onto him, not just for connection, but for self-worth. You think it's him you're chasing, but what you're really chasing is a sense of being enough, of finally being loved in the way you've always hoped for. And when he starts to lose interest or emotionally pull away, it activates an old trauma, an emotional blueprint buried in your nervous system that says, if he stops responding, I must be losing him. And if I lose him, that means something is wrong with me. This is where many women begin to perform. You become what you think he wants. You dim your light to make him more comfortable. You suppress your needs to keep his affection. And you call it love, but it's not. It's survival. A beautiful, heartbreaking attempt to feel safe in someone else's approval. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of us we suppress to maintain belonging. And, often, The shadow holds the most powerful pieces of our feminine truth. The voice that says, "I deserve more." The fire that says, "I don't need to prove my worth." The intuition that says, "If I have to beg for it, it's not love." But here's the shift. The moment you stop trying to manage his perception and start tending to your own truth, everything changes. Because the truth is, when you try to make someone addicted to you from a place of emptiness, it will never last. He may come back, but not for the right reasons. He may chase you, but not see you. He may stay, but not rise. The real power doesn't lie in tricks or games. It lies in your energy, the kind that doesn't apologize for taking up space, the kind that doesn't beg to be seen, the kind that knows, if he can't hold me, he's not my home. And when you come from that place, you don't need to silence the voice inside you anymore. You listen to it. You trust it. You let it guide you away from people who activate your wounds and toward those who honor your worth. So if you've been chasing, overgiving, shrinking, not because you're weak, but because you were taught to equate effort with love, it's time to come home to yourself. Because the woman who no longer betrays herself for love becomes magnetic. She stops needing to get him addicted. He becomes addicted on his own, to her presence, to her wholeness, to the way she doesn't chase because she knows she's already enough. There's a moment, quiet but undeniable, when something inside you awakens. It's not loud. It doesn't beg for attention. It just knows. It knows that the way you've been trying to hold him, to fix the distance, to decode his silence, isn't working. And more than that, it's not your job. You see, most women have been conditioned to overfunction in relationships, to do the emotional labor, to intuit his moods, to hold the connection together even when it feels like he's already slipping away. And because you care, you keep trying harder, often without realizing you're abandoning yourself in the process. But by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how to stop that cycle. You'll learn how to stop reacting to his behavior and start commanding the energy between you in a way that makes him feel magnetically drawn to you, not out of control, but out of awe. Because what he truly craves, beneath all his ego defenses, isn't a woman who bends for him, it's a woman who mirrors him in truth. You'll begin to see how men emotionally detach, not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much and were never taught how to process it. Jung called this the repression of the anima, the feminine energy in a man's psyche that feels, connects, surrenders. When a man hasn't integrated that part of himself, he pulls away to preserve his sense of control. But here's the secret: when you stop chasing, when you remain embodied in your own worth, it awakens his anima. And that's when everything shifts. This video isn't about manipulation, it's about mastery. The kind of mastery that comes when a woman reclaims her energy, stops overgiving and honors her own emotional intelligence. You'll begin to recognize his distance for what it is, a reflection of his unprocessed emotions, not your inadequacy. You'll no longer ask, "How do I keep him?" Instead, you'll ask, "Does he rise to meet me?" And if he doesn't, you'll feel the power to walk away, not to punish him, but to protect the version of yourself you're finally ready to honor. The first strategy is this: mirror his energy, don't chase. When he pulls back, your instinct may be to lean in, to fill the silence, to explain yourself, to overgive in hopes that he'll remember how good you are. But here's the deeper truth. When you chase, you confirm his unconscious belief that he holds the power. Jung said the ego will protect itself at all costs. And when a man feels you're emotionally over there with him instead of grounded within yourself, his ego relaxes and he disconnects. So instead, mirror his energy. If he slows his effort, you slow your response. If he becomes distant, you become still, not with coldness, but with poise. You are not abandoning the connection, you are reflecting his behavior like a mirror reflects light, clear, effortless, and without force. In that space, he's left to face his own shadow. The place where he fears being vulnerable, where he fears needing someone, and that's exactly where his desire begins to wake. The second strategy is speak through silence, not explanation. There is something deeply feminine and powerful about not over-explaining yourself. Most women are taught that if a man seems upset, confused, or distant, she must offer clarity, reassurance, or emotional safety. But in truth, when you rush to explain, you rob him of the experience of reaching for you. Carl Jung taught that we all project our inner world onto others. When a man feels uncertain about a woman, it's often because her stillness confronts parts of himself he hasn't yet examined. So instead of filling the space with words, let silence speak. Let your absence be noticed. Let your calm be louder than any argument. He will either lean in to clarify the connection or reveal that he cannot meet you where you are. Either way, your silence is not a weapon. It is your boundary, and it is magnetic. The third strategy is withdraw to create emotional clarity. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both him and yourself is to step back, not to punish, not to manipulate, but to return home to yourself. When your nervous system is constantly reacting to his inconsistency, you lose access to your intuition. You move from your feminine essence into survival, trying to secure his attention so you can feel safe. Jung would call this the moment the shadow takes over, when the part of you that fears abandonment begins running the show. But when you consciously withdraw, not with bitterness but with grace, something powerful happens. You return to your center, and from that place you can actually see clearly, is this connection real? Or is it a pattern you're playing out to prove your worth? Is he truly invested or just responding to your energy? Your withdrawal creates contrast. It allows him to feel the difference between your presence and your absence, and if there's real desire in him, he will chase it. The fourth strategy is live in your feminine, not in reaction. Your feminine energy is not about softness alone. It is about receptivity, magnetism, and presence. Too often, women live in constant emotional reactivity, shaped by what he says, how he acts, whether he calls, whether he commits. That's not your feminine. That's your fear disguised as love. Jung spoke of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole by integrating all the parts of ourselves. When you live in your true feminine, you are not reacting to him, you are responding to yourself. You move with grace, not urgency. You speak with intention, not desperation. You allow him to lead sometimes, not because you are weak, but because you are wise enough to know your power doesn't come from control, it comes from trust. When you embody your feminine in this way, you become the emotional contrast he didn't know he craved. In a world that asks men to disconnect from their hearts, your presence invites him to feel again. And that becomes addictive. You were never meant to fight for love by chasing, pleading, or proving. You were meant to remember who you are and let love come find you. He was never the answer, he was the mirror. The way he pulls away when you get too close, the way he shows up only when you detach, the way his affection flickers just enough to keep your heart reaching, wondering, hoping. It's not random, it's the emotional choreography your soul keeps dancing, replaying an old, familiar wound, hoping this time it ends in love. But love doesn't bloom in the garden of anxiety, and it doesn't grow in places where you abandon yourself just to be chosen. The truth is, you were never meant to lose yourself to earn someone else. You were meant to awaken, to see the pattern, to feel the pain, not as a punishment, but as a compass. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." What you think is fate, the way he ignores you, the way he only wants you when you're unavailable, is often just an unconscious repetition of a lesson your heart is ready to rewrite. 3 secret tricks to make him addicted to you. It's not about control. It's not about becoming something you're not. It's about becoming fully yourself. Because when a woman remembers her power, she stops chasing emotionally unavailable men, she stops bending for breadcrumbs, she stops begging for presents from someone who hasn't even learned how to be present with himself. These tricks are really truths. Truth 1. When you mirror his energy instead of over-functioning, you shift the dynamic. He sees himself not through blame, but through your balance. Truth 2. When you speak through silence instead of explanation, you create space for him to rise or retreat, and both are answers. Truth 3. When you withdraw to reclaim your clarity, you begin the journey of individuation, where your self-worth is no longer dependent on his attention. And when you live in your feminine, unapologetically, something ancient and magnetic stirs in him. Not because you tricked him, not because you made yourself more digestible, but because your energy invites his anima, the part of him that longs to feel, to come alive. That's why he gets addicted. Not to your body, not to your kindness, but to the peace he feels in your presence, and the contrast he feels when it's gone. You were never meant to fix him, you were meant to choose yourself. That's the shift. That's the sacred return. When you stop handing over your magic in exchange for crumbs, when you stop believing that love has to hurt to be real, when you see that your softness is your strength and your boundaries are your beauty. You are not hard, you are healed. You are not bitter, you are becoming. And no man, no matter how emotionally guarded, can resist the radiance of a woman who is rooted in her own worth. So take a breath, let go of the need to convince anyone of your value. He will either see it or he won't. But you will rise anyway. Because now you know the real secret isn't making him addicted to you. It's becoming so connected to yourself that he has no choice but to chase what he can't control: your self-worth, your peace, your power. If this message touched you, subscribe. Tell me in the comments what part spoke to you most. And share this with a woman who's forgetting how powerful she is. Because she, like you, was never too much. She was just never meant to shrink to be loved.